I'd just like to make the point that we're very fortunate that His Majesty has allowed us to use Buckingham Palace for this event.
For decades, Princess Anne protected one of the most painful secrets buried inside the royal jewel vault. It concerned Diana, a private request, and a refusal that carried far more meaning than anyone understood at the time. But when Anne finally placed both hands on the table and revealed what the late princess had asked Queen Elizabeth II to lend her, the room fell into stunned, almost disbelieving silence. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Anne had chosen a closed family conversation at Windsor Castle. No cameras waited outside. No aide stood ready to soften her words. She explained through a documented account she had preserved that Diana once asked to wear Queen Alexandra's sapphire and pearl choker. The private royal collection, meaning jewels controlled by the sovereign rather than owned by the state, held pieces whose symbolism could shape public perception. This necklace was among its most guarded treasures. Diana made the request before a state banquet, a formal dinner held for visiting leaders to display national unity. She believed the heirloom would signal something deeper than elegance. It would show that she had been accepted not only as Charles's wife, but as a permanent part of the dynasty. Anne then placed a faded jewel inventory card on the table. Diana's handwritten name remained visible across it. Her voice tightened as she said the Queen had refused, despite understanding what the request meant. William did not interrupt. He listened as his aunt described how his mother had received the decision without anger, protest, or open tears. Diana folded the banquet seating plan, thanked the monarch, and walked out alone. The prince's expression hardened because that restraint made the rejection feel worse. Charles watched him, then looked down at the card. The king reached toward it, stopped before touching it, and slowly drew his hand back. Anne finally revealed why the request had been denied. Security had not been the problem. Protocol had not blocked it. The necklace itself was in perfect condition. Elizabeth believed the choker represented unquestioned royal continuity, and she was not prepared to let Diana wear that authority. Her daughter had witnessed enough of the exchange to understand the truth. This was not a judgment about jewelry. It was a judgment about trust, belonging, and whether the princess would ever be allowed inside the institution. Then Anne disclosed that Diana had spoken to her privately after leaving the room. The refusal had lasted only minutes, but Diana's response to Anne would transform it into a secret the Princess Royal carried for more than 30 years. To the outside world, Diana had access to diamonds, pearls, tiaras, and royal treasures beyond imagination. Yet the one piece she wanted most was not the largest or the most valuable. Queen Alexandra's choker represented something no public appearance could provide. Proof that the woman behind the title was trusted. When that proof was denied, Diana understood the message immediately, and Anne saw the heartbreak beneath her controlled smile. Diana had always understood that royal jewelry carried messages. A tiara could show rank. A brooch could signal approval. A necklace could connect its wearer to generations of royal women who had stood before the country and been accepted as part of the crown. The crown, meaning the monarchy as an institution rather than one person, used these heirlooms to show continuity, loyalty, and confidence. For her, wearing such pieces was never simply about beauty. Each loan told the world how much the Queen trusted the woman wearing it. Queen Alexandra's sapphire and pearl choker carried even greater weight. The private dynastic heirloom, meaning a family treasure controlled personally by the sovereign, had long been associated with women considered dependable representatives of the monarchy. Diana had studied its history carefully. She knew it represented endurance, duty, and the ability to survive public pressure without breaking. That was exactly why she wanted it. Diana believed the state banquet could change the mood around her. Her marriage to Charles was already under strain, and whispers inside the household had begun growing louder. Yet she continued smiling, working, and attracting enormous public support. She hoped the Queen might recognize that loyalty. Wearing the choker would tell the country that private tension had not erased her royal standing. Anne found her soon after the refusal, standing alone in a small sitting room at Windsor. An untouched cup of tea sat nearby. Staff members moved through the corridor outside, so Diana kept her voice low and her tears under control. The Princess Royal asked whether she wanted company. Diana looked at her and said, "It was not the necklace she refused. It was me." Anne tried to defend her mother's caution. She said the queen often separated emotion from duty. Diana answered that she had not asked for affection. She had asked for trust and received a verdict instead. Diana then removed the sapphire earrings she had planned to wear with the choker. One by one, she placed them back inside their case. Anne watched her close the lid with both hands, as though sealing away something far more painful than jewelry. Yet Anne also understood the queen's fear. A private warning had recently reached Elizabeth, convincing her that lending the heirloom could create both a personal and constitutional problem. To understand why the monarch made such a cold decision, Anne had to return to the private incident that transformed concern into refusal. The refusal did not begin in the jewel vault. It began months earlier, at Balmoral, during a dinner that ended with Diana leaving the table before dessert, and the queen remaining perfectly still. What happened afterward became the hidden trigger behind the necklace decision. Anne witnessed the conversation, remembered every word, and later understood that the choker had been withheld long before Diana ever formally requested it. Diana had entered the evening already carrying anger. A family engagement involving William and Harry had been cancelled without her approval, and palace advisors had informed her only after the decision was settled. The household, meaning the private staff and officials who managed royal duties and family arrangements, claimed the change was necessary. She saw something darker. To her, it proved that decisions about her sons were slowly being removed from her hands. Charles tried to keep the argument controlled. He told his wife that the matter could be discussed later, and asked her not to bring private grievances to the dinner table. Diana refused to retreat. She said she had been expected to smile before the public, while people behind closed doors decided where she would go, what she would say, and when she could be with her own children. The prince warned her again. She looked directly at him and asked why protecting the institution always seemed to mean leaving her exposed. Elizabeth heard every word. Anne watched her mother remain rigid as the tension deepened. The queen believed discipline held the family together, yet Diana's pain revealed how little that discipline had protected her. No voice rose to a shout, but the room felt more dangerous than any open argument. When Charles said the discussion was over, the princess stood before dessert, fought back tears, and left without asking permission. Anne stayed silent as the door closed. Elizabeth folded her napkin, placed it precisely beside her plate, and looked toward the empty chair. She felt wounded by the breach of decorum, but fear had entered the room as well. The monarch turned to her daughter and said, Diana was becoming emotionally unpredictable. Certain heirlooms, she added, could not be used to endorse a unity the family no longer possessed. Then the queen spoke the sentence Anne would never forget. Some jewels do not simply adorn a woman. They tell the country whom the crown trusts. The crown, meaning the monarchy as an enduring institution, could not send that message while the marriage itself was breaking apart. Charles said nothing. He stared at the chair Diana had abandoned, while Elizabeth ordered that the conversation never leave the room. Anne obeyed, but she understood the decision had already been made. Months later, when Diana formally asked for the choker, the answer was waiting for her. Yet she would not accept that judgment quietly. The request would become more than a question placed before the queen. It would become the confrontation both women had been avoiding. There were no advisors, no photographers, and no husband standing between them. Diana entered the queen's private drawing room, carrying a handwritten request, and left knowing exactly how the monarch judged her. Anne's account transforms the encounter from a simple denial into a collision between two women who understood duty in completely different ways and who were both too proud to retreat once the truth had been spoken. Diana had requested a private audience before the state banquet. A private audience was a closed meeting with the sovereign, usually granted when a matter was too sensitive for ordinary palace channels. She arrived with a small card listing Queen Alexandra's choker, the gown she intended to wear, and the sapphire earrings chosen to match it. The request was careful, respectful, and impossible to misunderstand. Elizabeth had already prepared her answer. The velvet case had been brought from the jewel room and placed nearby, still closed. Diana noticed it immediately. The queen had not dismissed the request without thought. She had examined it, measured its meaning, and decided the necklace would not leave the room. Diana spoke first. She said the choker was not about spectacle. Wearing it would show continuity at a time when the public could sense strain inside the family. She wanted the banquet to prove that she remained committed to her duty, even while her marriage to Charles was weakening behind palace walls. Elizabeth listened without interruption. Then she said continuity could not be created through appearance alone. Diana's expression changed. The remark was not about the dinner, the gown, or the necklace. It was about her marriage and the monarch's belief that a fractured private life could not be hidden beneath royal jewels. Diana asked the question directly. Did the Queen believe she could be trusted? Elizabeth did not answer at once. She placed one hand on the velvet case and said the necklace would remain where it was. Anne entered near the end of the exchange at her mother's request. She heard Diana say that refusing the choker would not repair the family. It would only confirm that the family had already rejected her. The Princess Royal looked toward the Queen, but the monarch gave nothing away. Diana picked up the handwritten card, tore it once down the middle, and stopped. She placed both pieces beside the unopened case. Then she left without offering a second curtsy, the formal gesture of respect normally given before departing the sovereign's presence. Anne expected Elizabeth to dismiss the confrontation as emotion. Instead, the Queen remained beside the closed box and admitted what she truly feared. Diana would not merely wear the heirloom, she would define it. Behind the refusal stood more than mistrust. It stood a ruthless understanding of how royal symbols could transfer power without a single word being spoken. Queen Elizabeth II understood something Diana also understood. Royal jewels could speak more loudly than speeches. A necklace worn for one evening could redefine status, sympathy, and succession in the public imagination. The Queen did not fear that Diana would damage the choker. She feared that Diana would wear it too powerfully, and that the image created that night could become stronger than the authority attempting to contain her. Elizabeth had spent her life protecting the crown from moments that could weaken its meaning. The crown, meaning the monarchy as an enduring institution rather than a physical object, depended on symbols that told the public who possessed trust, permanence, and approval. When the sovereign lent a deeply personal heirloom, the gesture carried far more weight than fashion. It could look like endorsement, it could suggest succession. It could quietly tell the nation that one woman had been chosen to embody the dynasty's future. Diana already commanded extraordinary public attention. Her warmth reached people the palace struggled to reach, while her presence could dominate an event before another royal had spoken. Any photograph of her wearing Queen Alexandra's choker would fill front pages across the world. The necklace would no longer be remembered only for its history. It would become hers in the public imagination. The Queen feared that transformation. She believed she was protecting stability, at a time when Diana's marriage to Charles was close to breaking. The princess, however, felt punished for possessing the influence the monarchy repeatedly used whenever it needed public affection. She was valuable enough to draw crowds, carry causes, and soften the institution's image, yet not trusted enough to wear one of its most meaningful heirlooms. Anne stood between those truths. She respected her mother's discipline and understood why a fragile marriage could not be presented as secure. Yet the Princess Royal also recognized what protocol was hiding. Diana was being denied affection through rules that sounded neutral but felt deeply personal. Elizabeth told her daughter privately that once the public saw Diana in the choker, the association would become permanent. It would not matter who inherited the necklace later. The image would belong to the princess forever. Worse, the loan could appear to confirm Diana's future royal standing, at the very moment the family feared that future was collapsing. Charles was summoned to the Queen's study after the confrontation. Elizabeth told him the request had been rejected. He lowered himself into a chair, rubbed his forehead, and admitted he had never known Diana intended to ask. Charles then said the matter should be forgotten. Anne's restraint finally cracked. She told him Diana would not forget it, and neither should he. The Queen had protected the necklace's symbolism, but the emotional cost was already moving beyond her control. When Diana entered the banquet without the heirloom, the absence around her throat became more powerful than the jewel itself. Diana still attended the banquet. She still smiled, greeted dignitaries, and fulfilled every obligation expected of her. Yet those closest to the dispute could see the strain in every controlled movement. The Queen's choker remained locked away, but its absence followed Diana through the evening like a public sentence. Anne watched from across the room and realized the refusal had already begun producing consequences no palace order could contain. Diana wore her own sapphire earrings and a simpler pearl necklace, chosen at the last moment. A lady-in-waiting, meaning a senior female attendant, who personally assisted a royal woman, adjusted the clasp before the ballroom doors opened. The princess looked toward the mirror and asked quietly, "Does it look borrowed?" The question cut deeper than anyone expected. She was not asking about the pearls. She was asking whether she herself looked temporary. Elizabeth entered wearing another historic sapphire piece. The Queen did not need to explain its meaning. Her jewels confirmed authority, continuity, and unquestioned ownership of the role she had carried for decades. Diana's replacement necklace told a different story. To the public, she appeared elegant and composed. Inside the family, everyone understood that the piece around her throat was not the one she had requested. Anne approached before the first formal greeting and told Diana she looked dignified. The princess thanked her, then answered that dignity was often the only thing left when affection and trust had already been removed. The Princess Royal felt the force of those words, because she knew the rejection had followed Diana into the room. The banquet was meant to display unity. Instead, it had become proof of the distance between them. A foreign guest later admired Diana's sapphires and asked whether they belonged to the royal collection. She paused before saying they were personal. The royal collection, meaning historic objects held and managed for the monarchy, carried the approval she had been denied. Anne heard the answer. Charles heard it too. Charles looked toward Diana, but he did not step forward. He turned back to the conversation beside him and allowed the moment to pass. The princess saw him withdraw. His silence convinced her that he had accepted the Queen's judgment and would not challenge it, even when the humiliation unfolded before him. Diana removed the pearl necklace before reaching her rooms. She handed it to an attendant and said she did not wish to wear pearls again that evening. Anne later returned to the room where the confrontation had occurred and found the torn request card still beside the velvet case. Anne took both pieces. She hid them inside the jewel inventory ledger rather than allowing the evidence to disappear. Years later, those torn fragments would lead her to William, and the prince's response would determine whether Diana's pain remained private or finally entered the record. The turning point does not occur before a council or inside a ceremonial chamber. It happens privately between Anne and William, with no aides, no advisors, and no palace language to soften the pain. She places the torn card before him and allows him to read his mother's handwriting. In that moment, the dispute stops being a story about royal jewelry and becomes a son's confrontation with the loneliness his mother concealed. Anne had asked William to meet her alone at Windsor. She brought the original jewel ledger, the two torn halves of Diana's request card, and a sealed note written after the confrontation. A jewel ledger was the official record used to track royal heirlooms, their movements, and the people permitted to wear them. She had kept all three items together because she feared the emotional truth would one day be erased by cleaner language. William unfolded the card carefully. His mother's request was formal, almost restrained, but the torn edge told another story. The prince traced it with his thumb and struggled to connect those polite words with the humiliation Anne had described. Diana had asked for one necklace. What she had really asked for was recognition. Anne watched him read in silence. Then she admitted what had burdened her for years. She had believed discretion protected the monarchy. Now she understood that her silence had also protected the wound inflicted upon Diana. The Princess Royal had witnessed the rejection, preserved the evidence, and still said nothing while the princess was alive. The sealed note carried the sharpest truth. Anne had recorded Diana's words after the refusal. She would always be treated as temporary, no matter her title or her place, as mother of the future king. The future king meant the direct heir expected one day to become sovereign. William read that sentence twice, and each time it felt less like memory and more like judgment. Anne then revealed that Elizabeth later reconsidered the severity of her decision. The Queen never admitted she had been wrong, and she never reversed the refusal. The choker remained unworn. It was never offered to Diana again. William closed the ledger and stood. He walked to the window and remained there for several moments before turning back. The prince told Anne the truth should be acknowledged, but not used to attack the late queen or diminish his mother. Both women deserved context. Only one had been denied it for decades. Anne agreed to speak because William gave her what she had never possessed before: permission from Diana's son to replace secrecy with truth. Once the account left that room, the public did not see a minor jewel dispute. The torn card had survived in darkness for decades, but its story now illuminated an old royal wound with unforgiving clarity. By morning, the heirloom locked inside the palace vault has become the most discussed necklace in Britain. Newspapers do not focus on its sapphires or pearls. They focus on the woman who asked to wear it, and the monarch who said no. Anne's disclosure forces the public to reinterpret one of Diana's most vulnerable periods, not as vague royal unhappiness, but as a precise moment when acceptance was requested and deliberately withheld. Palace officials respond with a restrained statement. They acknowledge Anne's documented recollection, while stressing that private family decisions were made during a deeply troubled period. The palace, meaning the royal household, and the officials who manage the monarchy's public response, tries to contain the story. Yet the wording only gives the revelation more weight. It confirms that the refusal was real, even if the institution refuses to judge it openly. Commentators begin explaining why the necklace mattered. Royal heirlooms were not simple accessories. They signaled trust, rank, continuity, and approval from the sovereign. A denied loan could therefore feel like a formal judgment. Supporters of Elizabeth argue that the Queen acted to protect stability during a constitutional crisis, a period when a royal marriage threatened the public standing of the monarchy itself. Diana's admirers answer with fury. They argue that the institution used her warmth, popularity, and global influence whenever it needed public affection, yet denied her the emotional security that should have come with her role. The contrast becomes impossible to ignore. She was trusted to represent the crown before millions, but not trusted to wear one deeply symbolic necklace. William feels disturbed by the growing attempt to turn the story into a simple war between his mother and grandmother. The prince insists privately that both women must be understood. He will not allow Diana's pain to be softened, but he also refuses to reduce the late queen to a villain. A national broadcaster gives the controversy its defining frame. It places a reconstruction of the torn request card beside a photograph of Diana wearing substitute pearls and calls the segment, "The Jewel That Became a Judgment." The public then learns that the choker was never worn by another senior royal during Elizabeth's lifetime. That detail changes everything. It suggests the monarch knew the piece had become inseparable from the refusal. Outside Kensington Palace, visitors leave sapphire blue ribbons among the flowers at the gates. One handwritten card reads, "She asked for a necklace. What she needed was belonging." Anne watches the coverage alone. When Diana appears on the screen, the Princess Royal lowers the volume and says she had looked braver than anyone realized. Now sympathy demands more than explanation. The monarchy cannot undo the refusal, but Anne, William, and Charles must decide whether the necklace remains a symbol of exclusion or becomes part of Diana's restored dignity. The final decision is not to place Queen Alexandra's choker around another royal woman's neck, nor is it to pretend the refusal never happened. Anne, William, and Charles agree that the necklace must remain unworn, preserved beside Diana's request, and the complete account of why it was denied. For the first time, the heirloom will carry not only the Queen's authority, but the truth of the woman who was refused it. William proposes that the choker, the repaired request card, and Anne's written testimony remain together inside the Royal Archive. The Royal Archive, meaning the protected collection of documents and objects preserving the monarchy's official history, will hold the complete record, rather than a softened version of events. The decision ensures that the heirloom cannot be reassigned, sold, or worn without acknowledging the pain now permanently attached to it. Charles reads Anne's documented account alone before approving the arrangement. The king reaches the part describing Diana's private meeting with the Queen and stops. She had entered that room seeking reassurance. She had left believing her husband would not defend her. Charles can no longer dismiss that belief as misunderstanding, because his silence had given it power. Charles later speaks privately with William. He does not excuse himself. The monarch admits that avoiding conflict had felt easier than challenging his mother, or confronting the collapse of his marriage. Yet the easier choice left Diana carrying the rejection alone. William listens without anger, but the prince makes one thing clear: acknowledgement must now replace avoidance. Anne offers the final judgment. Elizabeth had acted from fear for the monarchy, not hatred of Diana. The Queen believed she was protecting continuity during a dangerous period, but the Princess Royal refuses to hide behind intention. Duty without compassion, she says, can become cruelty even when those responsible believe they are protecting something larger. William also rejects the idea of giving the choker to Catherine or Charlotte. Turning it into another ceremonial object would erase the lesson attached to his mother's request. The future king believes the necklace should remain untouched, because its silence now speaks more honestly than any public appearance could. Anne places the repaired card beneath the necklace inside its velvet case. She closes the lid slowly. This time, the gesture does not silence Diana. It secures her version of the story beside the heirloom forever. The royal archive now records that Diana asked, the queen refused, and the decision carried profound personal meaning. Her pain is no longer dismissed as rumor, oversensitivity, or private confusion. Diana never wore Queen Alexandra's sapphire and pearl choker, yet the necklace will always be remembered through her. Elizabeth retained the heirloom, but Diana ultimately claimed its meaning. The story ends with the necklace still inside its case, but Diana's dignity, once locked away beside it, finally released from the silence. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.